Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Chats. I'm your host, Rukhsana Alieva. Today, I'm joined by another very special guest, Shona Hirons. Shona is an award winning behavior, fitness, and nutrition coach and motivational speaker. And in this episode, we are going to discuss how to incorporate fitness into your busy life. Welcome to the show, Shona.
Thank you very much for having me, Rukhsana.
Um, Shona, I think I briefly mentioned this when I initially reached out to you on how I found you, how I found you on LinkedIn, your
Yeah.
account. So someone from my network liked one of your posts, and I believe there was a video where you were doing some dance aerobics,
No,
which
probably. Yeah.
which actually looked so cool. But then I saw another video of yours where you were doing clap push-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a challenge I was given by someone else on LinkedIn. I didn't even know I could do them.
I was literally like, wow, the power, strength, explosiveness. I was very impressed.
Thank you. I
It's
actually
like,
had a stress fracture in my wrist as well at the time. So, yeah, probably a bit silly to do it. But when I'm given a challenge, I find a way to do it. I surprise myself sometimes.
yeah, no, and yes, I did read a post to that video, and you said, yeah, you had like injuries, some wrist injury, but that looked like an athlete level, I would say. I think if I would do it, I'll probably drop my jaw on the
Well, I
floor.
was worried about that. I do have a tendency to fall on my face, to be quite fair. And that's not even an exaggeration.
Yeah, no, I'm truly impressed by your fitness achievements.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Sean, I know you worked as a lawyer for 20 years.
Yeah.
What why did you make that significant career shift?
Well, I hit burnout big time 10 years ago, and I'd always been into my fitness, my health and fitness, pretty much most of my life. As a teenager, I swam for my country, and that was a huge part of my life. And then just before I hit the age of 17, I had an injury to my knee and had to have surgery to my knee, and that kind of brought an end to my competitive swimming. And my parents were their values were that you're only successful if you have a six-figure sum, if you've got status after your name, the big house in the street, the nice car. So they were like, right, you've got to go and focus on your studies now. And my dad was a lawyer, so it was kind of already mapped out for me that that's what I was going to do. And so I did, and I studied hard. I went to university. I qualified as a lawyer, and it wasn't all bad. It was great for the first 10 years or so, and I pushed myself quite hard in my career and got quite senior. And in my early 20s, I found out I had some sort of medical condition. We weren't really sure what it was, but I'd had a minor stroke when I was 22, and I was put on to quite severe medication and told it was most unlikely I'd be able to have children on that medication. And that's kind of why I pushed myself in my career. And at the age of early 20s, I didn't really think about having children anyway. And then when I was 32, I decided to do my PADI diving course and went away and did that. And as part of the theory part of that element of the course, a lot of my symptoms that I had 10 years earlier were very similar to people who were divers, like getting the bends and stuff. And a lot of divers have holes in their hearts. And I was born very prematurely. I was born a couple of months early, and that was 1974, and the healthcare wasn't as good as it is today. But because I kept myself so fit and active as a child and teenager, I never had any medical problems or that I was aware of growing up. And it wasn't until I stopped swimming that they started to become apparent, and I would get these severe migraines, like so severe that I would lose all the feeling in one side. Hence, then I had the minor stroke. So I mentioned it to my GP on when I came back from doing my paddy diving course, and he sent me for some tests at a local hospital. And long story short, it became apparent that I had a hole in my heart, and then I had it closed up very, very quickly. And within about 8 or 9 months, I was able to come off all the medication, and I fell pregnant with my now nearly 16-year-old daughter. And that was like my little miracle. I never ever thought I was going to have a child, and I always had this image of a daughter with this blonde curly hair, and that's exactly what I had. It was like, wow, this was meant to be. And that was when my priorities around work changed. I realized that I wanted to be a career woman, but I also wanted to be a mum, and I wanted to have both. And I felt that even then, back in 2008, I thought that was possible. And working in the kind of area of law that I worked in, it was very high pace, it was very high stress. And I just didn't get any kind of flexible working around it. And I found myself working longer and harder, but definitely not smarter. And before I knew it, burnout crept up on me, and I stopped neglecting my needs. I started neglecting my needs. I stopped doing my exercise, and I would literally come into work every day, and I would sit at my desk and I would stay there for hours and hours and hours. And the only thing that I would do was fuel myself on coffee after coffee. I would eat unhealthy snacks from the vending machine. My weight would go up and down because I wasn't eating properly. God knows what my insides were doing. And I became this different person. You know, I became someone who was very negative. I would cry a lot. I'd be sick a lot. I started hating my job. I stopped going out with friends because I was always exhausted. And I fell out of love with myself. I hated myself. And it ended up with me having a life-changing accident in 2017. And that made me finally stop and slow down and question my values and my beliefs and what I want in life. And, you know, I won't go into too much detail about it, but, you know, it shouldn't have to get to a point where life becomes almost at a point where you might not even survive to make you make those changes. And I just wish somebody had said to me, I just need to slow down a little bit and take a break. And that's why I believe now actually adding in some movement into your day, you know, regularly actually helps to keep you energized. It improves your mood, your focus, your cognitive function. I'm a much happier person as a result, and I get far more done.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Wow. That's you have experienced such a life, significant life events, since your childhood and even till like a few years ago.
Mm.
And do you think in 2017, so that was just due to that medical issue that what triggered you to leave law as an
Yeah.
industry? Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I mean, I did try to go back to work after my accident. I had nearly a year off work with having major surgery to my face, my head. I had to have my hearing restored, my eyesight restored in my left eye. My injuries were very life-threatening. And when I did go back to work, I realized that I had to learn how to do things differently. And I didn't know if that was to do with the injuries I'd suffered. But the other thing I found out shortly after was that the trauma of the accident pushed me into early menopause as well. And that kind of explained things like the cognitive function with the brain fog I was experiencing. And my employer had a big issue with that. And, you know, I'd had all this time off work due to my physical injuries and being assessed by occupational health, etc. And then when I went back to work and I was being very micromanaged because I was struggling to remember conversations, I'd forget what I was talking about halfway through a conversation. I was always dashing off outside to wait out a hot flush, which I didn't have any idea what was going on with my body. I was 44 at the time, and it was stressful. It was really hard work, and I ended up getting diagnosed with episodic depression as a result of my accident and the stress at work. And that was when my employer said, we feel like you're too much of a risk for the business, so we're either going to give you an option of going on a performance improvement plan for a month, and if you're not better, then you'll be facing a disciplinary hearing. Well, we know what happens then. Or you could go on an unpaid sabbatical until you're better, or you can leave. So I got myself signed off sick the next day and never went back. And it's been my mission ever since to, one, understand and raise awareness around things like menopause in the workplace, but also about lifting these taboos on subjects like mental health in the workplace and getting people moving. I actually believe the best gift an employer can give their staff is a resistance band, because they don't weigh anything, they cost hardly anything, and it gets people just stretching, gets up and moving. You can still do your work. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. And I am so sorry to hear that, what you went through with your previous employer, or with your last employer, right? Former employer, probably that's the correct word. Yes, I believe, so here now in 2024, I think menopause is is in the spotlight. It's almost everywhere. Like if you go on LinkedIn, but again, I don't know whether company actually implement this policy or they just talking about it. I don't know. I left corporate world a few years ago, so I don't know what's going on. But I can see a lot of discussions and around topic menopause, how companies need to support women, but that wasn't your case back, even a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
And I
crazy.
mean, even now, yes, companies are talking about it, and there's this menopause pledge that companies can sign up to. But from what I've seen with quite a few of them, it is a very reactive approach and not a proactive approach. And without naming any names, I had a conversation with a corporate company a couple of weeks ago, and they said, oh well, we've trained up some menopause champions so people can go and have a chat. Their menopause champions were all under the age of 23, and no disrespect to that at all, but I know, having gone through it myself, a 23-year-old or under would not have had a clue what it's like to experience the brain fog I'd experienced, or to wait out a hot flush, or to have been late for work because you've been up all night because of a night sweat, or to have a period that's lasted for the last 3 weeks. You have to have, I believe you have to have experienced it yourself to truly understand it.
Yes, absolutely. I can't even imagine that a 23-year-old is a menopause champion. What would they know? It's just, you need to experience it to not
Yeah.
just read from textbook.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
and there's so much incorrect information out on the internet, and that's the important thing, is to understand it. I've done my certification in menopause qualifications, and some of the stuff I see is actually dangerous, because you'll get someone saying, oh well, you've got to take this supplement and this vitamin and this, but if you're on HRT, hormone replacement therapy, it can actually imbalance the hormones, and you need to know if it's regulated, if it's safe to use as well. And there's too much stuff out there which people don't talk about the side effects and that stuff, and that it can actually create more of a problem. So make sure your sources are reliable and up to date as well, and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or you see a doctor, right, who is specialized in prescribing correct dose, I believe, right? Yeah.
It's the correct dose, but also someone like me who's qualified to be able to say, actually, yes, that's okay, that is regulated, that is okay to take with HRT, and actually if there's any benefit at all, because very often, I think it's like anything with marketing these days and advertising, is you see something and you think, oh right, oh I must need that, and actually very often you probably don't, because you can get most of it from just your nutrition alone.
Yeah, it's like I think it's that FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Like, oh, maybe I
Yeah,
need that.
yeah,
Something's trendy at the moment, and maybe. Oh yeah, as you said, yeah, it's all just the majority of that is marketing.
yeah.
Sometimes you don't even need that stuff.
No, no.
Shona, how I'm just wondering, how has your personal journey through fitness changed you mentally and physically? Because now I can see you're very active. So when you left, sorry, just track back. So when you left law, did you? Sorry, just before that, did you get into fitness straight away? Like, what was that transition? Was
Yeah, well, I qualified as a personal trainer at the end of 2013. So when I was still working as a lawyer, because I was struggling a lot with my burnout at that stage. And I was trying to find ways of, interrupting the cycle, look after myself a little bit more. And I did start doing that. And I got back into my fitness. And there was a new fitness center opening in the town where I live, and someone said, you'd be great as an instructor. And at the time I was 39, and I thought, who wants someone who's about to go into their 40s, being their trainer? And actually, what I found is a lot of people respect that, because I understand what it's like being someone who's slightly older as a trainer. For example, you've maybe got someone who's like a woman who's had a baby, or even gone through menopause, so their bladder lining's weaker. They might not want to do jump squats or burpees or start jumps. So giving them an alternative, and not just assuming, taking your time when you're lifting your weights. You don't need to go really quick. In fact, that can cause more injury. And I found that I was becoming a bit of a role model for people in that way. But the problem I still had was I still didn't know how to say no. And it took me another few years to still learn those boundaries and have that balance in my life.
Yes, yeah, I can see. No, definitely. I think we need representation of fitness trainers from all age. It doesn't have to be just one particular, age group, or they should not look certain way. And I think the fitness industry is changing right now into that direction.
Yeah.
So there are more people who come in and can
Well, I'm,
can
I'm setting myself up for my, I look at some people, some older people, 70s, 80s, 90s, if you live that long, and, they've got bad posture, they've got osteoporosis. I don't want to be one of those people. I'm also not looking to be skinny. I actually believe strong is the new skinny. And, I hit 50 this year. And whereas some people think, oh my goodness, the big 50 is scary. I can't wait. Bring it on. And I think for me as well, with my mindset, having nearly died a couple of times, if not more, it's made me appreciate my life a lot more. And that might sound like a cliche, but I never used to celebrate my birthdays at all, mainly because my nan and my gran, they both died within a day of my birthday when I was growing up, and we never really celebrated it. Whereas now, I mean, for my 50th this year, I want the biggest party ever. I really do. I want everyone there, and I'm just going to dance all night.
Oh, sounds so cool. Yeah, I'm sure you'll have probably a big party. No, definitely. I think age. I know it sounds like a cliche, but age is a number. It's just some people put so much pressure as they get older. Even I remember when I turned 30. For me, it was like, oh my god, I'm getting old. Now, obviously, I'm much older. I'm almost in my late 30s, and I was like, oh my god, 30s, I was so young. So yeah, it was unnecessary mental as well stress on me, which I used to put on myself as well. So yeah, coming back to questions in terms of your personal journey, how fitness changed you mentally and physically. I think you partially responded, but if we can
Yeah,
be a
I
bit.
mean, I think, when I came away, when I had my accident, when I was recovering, my doctors told me there were certain things I'd never be able to do again. And for at least 9 months, I couldn't even walk. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to eat properly again because I'd had my jaw all pinned back together as well. And when someone tells me I can't do something, I think maybe because I am quite stubborn anyway, I find a way to do it. So my first challenge, so my accident was a cycling accident, and I came off my bike, and although I was wearing a helmet, it was my face that took the main impact. And my first challenge 18 months after the accident was to take part in a half Ironman event, which involved doing a 1.2 mile swim, 56 miles on the bike, and then a half marathon straight after each other. And I hadn't been able to get back on a bike since my accident. And it was this fear that I'd kind of had now of getting back on a bike. What if it happens again? But I had to do it for me. And I did. And I achieved it, even though I was told you're not going to be able to do that. And that was my first one. And then the second challenge was I was told that I would struggle with any form of altitude again, because I'd had so much pressure in my brain, and I'd had a lot more surgery over the year to try and release the pressure and get my hearing back and my sight back. And I was kind of breaking the rules in some ways, because I was being told, right, you shouldn't be able to do this or do that. So then my next challenge was to go skiing, and that might not seem that hard, but going up the mountains and the altitude, I did it. And the way I did that was to get off the ski lift at each level and wait for the pressure to normalize. And then I was planning, my plan was in February this year, because I'm doing, I've set myself a goal to do 50 things I've not done before I'm 50. And I'm pretty much there. I've only got about 2 left. But one of those was to climb Kilimanjaro. And I'd signed up for it. It was all sorted. I was getting sponsorship. And it was really important for me to do the climb between the 22nd of February and the 6th of March, because that was when I had my accident and I was put into an induced coma. And then literally just before Christmas, the company I'd booked it through cancelled it due to lack of numbers. And first of all, I was gutted. I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? I've done, all this training. So I found another way to make sure I still did the climb. And I did it on the climbing mill in my local gym with a 15-kilo sack on my back. And I even wore a mask as well sometimes to take into effect the fact that we have altitude. And I got a chest infection as well just towards the end of it. And so I was really unwell. So I had to do about 2.5 hours a day on this climbing mill. And it wasn't the real thing, but I still did it virtually and made sure I got to the height, but I did some more as well. And now my plan is to do it. I will still do the climb properly, definitely, but it'll probably be next year now instead. But that has just really made me fall in love with how I feel about, exercise, fitness. Now I work from home. I run my own business as well. And when you're, kind of trapped between these 4 walls of your own house, for me, starting my day with a walk or some form of fitness, I've got a dog, so that helps. It makes me own my day. I come back from that walk into the right mindset to start work. And then I can't just sit down at my desk until lunchtime. So I make sure I get up at least once an hour and just take 2 minutes or so. That's all it takes to move. And I've come up with this concept called movement snacks.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that. That's a fascinating concept.
Well, the amount of people that say to me, I don't have time to exercise, I don't have time for any kind of fitness. Well, I think if you say you don't have time for any form of movement, then sooner or later you are going to have to find time for illness. I honestly believe that, because that was my life before. And I look at the things that happened to me, and I call it my former life now, because I feel like I've had another chance. And it will happen. And I believe that slowing down speeds you up. So a movement snack is, like it says on the tin, is just doing some movement for a couple of minutes. And it can be anything. You can do them from your desk. I recommend coming away from your desk. But say, for example, you're going to make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I take my kettlebell with me. Here's my kettlebell, okay? And I call them kettle boils. And it'll take 2 to 3 minutes to boil your kettle or for your coffee machine to go through. And while that's on, pop some music on in the background, grab your kettlebell, and you can do some kettlebell swings, like, out like that, or you can do some overhead marches, or you can even come into some nice squats like that. Or the other one is just down, up, reach up, do some on the other side. And you know what? You do that, your heart rate will go up, you will feel more energized, and you will come back to your desk and you feel refocused. So I do stuff like that. Or you mentioned earlier how you've seen some of my LinkedIn posts, and I might do like the push-ups one. In that one, first of all, that started off with me showing how while your coffee's brewing, you can just go down onto the floor, do 10 push-ups. You don't even have to do them on the floor. You can use your wall and push up against your wall if you want to. Another one is you can have a glass of water, pop a straw in it, use your desk, come down, you're having some water as well. Right? So you're getting hydrated and keeping fit at the same time while your coffee's being made. It's just like, combining 3 or 4 things in one. So it doesn't take any extra time out of your day. But that challenge there, that literally took me 20 seconds to do the 10 push-ups. My coffee still had another minute to go, so I could have done more. And then someone challenged me to do the clapping push-ups. So I was like, okay, challenge on, I'll have a go. And somehow I did it, because I don't like to not complete a challenge. And then, yeah, just loads of other things, resistance bands again. Even if you sat at your desk and you think, right, okay, I've been bent over for far too long. Osteopaths at the moment are inundated with people with back problems because they're just sat down for far too long. And, living a sedentary life has become the new smoking. People are sat down for far too long. Grab your resistance band, bring it over your head, sit up nice and tall, tummy in, and just stretch. You don't have to do anything more than that, okay? You can even use your chair, do some tricep dips, just some leg raises. You have to just start somewhere. And it does get your heart rate up a little bit. It does get you more energized. And you will definitely feel more focused and stop getting those lull times.
Wow, that looks so practical as well. And again, it's not like you need to spend extra time going to the gym or going to any facilities. It's actually at home,
Yeah.
right? Whilst as you said, you are doing a cup of tea or something like that, or even having a what do you call that desk?
A standing desk.
Yeah, standing
Yeah,
desk as
yeah.
well.
They're
Even
really good. And if you need to go and use the bathroom, I mean, I've got one just behind my office door here. But if I do need to use the bathroom, I go up the stairs, because actually climbing the stairs for 2 minutes a day is equivalent to jogging for 10 minutes a day. So when you get into that mindset, it's things like that can really make, a difference. And I think we just need to get into the habit of moving a little bit more. And if you can't remember to do it, schedule it into your calendar. And that might seem like a bit daft, but when people create these to-do lists, and they tend to be as long as your shopping list, but most of the time it's all work related, and there's nothing on there for yourself. It should be equal. And that does, I in order to get that balance in your life, it has to have equal amounts of both on. And believe me, you can still keep on adding more tasks in, but if you just stop and just spend 1 or 2 minutes on yourself, it makes a huge amount of difference. And I don't know about globally, but in the UK in particular, the chief medical officer will recommend 150 minutes of moderate intense exercise a week. Now, some people will look at that and go, whoa, I haven't got 150 minutes. That does look like a lot. But if you break it down daily, that's 30 minutes a day. But again, if you're someone who's really busy, whether you're a mum with loads of, with children, and, or a new mum who's just got a baby, or you're a business owner, or you're working, any situation, that can still seem like a lot. So again, you could break it down into 3 10-minute chunks. But even I know people think that's too much. So the movement snack has come from turn it around even more and break it down into 10 3-minute chunks. And most people are going to be able to find 3 minutes here and there during the day to move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any movement is better than no movement.
Even standing up. That's why
Yeah.
standing desks are about. So, anything other than just sitting or lying down is good.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And as well these days, because the majority of people work from home,
Mm,
that's as well is quite problematic. Because let's say when you need to commute, or if you need to go to the office, at least you are involved in any type of movement.
yeah,
But when you're constantly at home, sometimes, yeah, people get, I don't want to call it lazy, but they get into that habit of
yeah,
sitting all the time. And because if you have a desk job and it involves that mental concentration, by the end of the day you get that mental fatigue, and then
mm,
you don't feel like doing it all. And that, I'm talking from my own experience,
yeah,
when I used to work for someone during the pandemic time, and the amount of weight I put on, I think I've never been that heavy, probably for, I don't know, for the last 15 years.
yeah.
Yeah, and it had such a bad toll on my mental health. I feel like, oh my God, nothing
I
suits
think,
me.
yeah, I've seen that a lot, and that's why I think it's really important. If you're working from home, you might not have to go anywhere to go to an office, because your office might be your spare room or the kitchen, but you should take a fake commute. And a fake commute, as it says, instead of like getting public transport to work or riding your bike to work, well, just go on a bike ride around the block instead, or take your dog out, or if you haven't got a dog, just go for a walk. And now the weather's getting better as well. There's nothing better, and I've tried experimenting with this, and I do always go out for a walk first thing in the morning, and I don't take calls before 8 a.m., because that time before that is mine. I am quite an early riser, but I always get my dog out for a nice walk. And one is quite social, because you normally meet people and say hello. You're getting your dose of vitamin D, which is really important as well. But you're getting your heart rate up a little bit as well. And I've tried experimenting with it where I've not done that, and I've come straight to my desk and started work. And do you know what? I've been all over the place. My mood has been not great. I found myself snapping at my daughter, saying, "Come on, hurry up! You've got to do this, you've got to do that," and I'm not like that at all. And then it's taken me probably a good hour just to get into what I'm doing, because my brain is still in that whole like rest mode. But yet I know I need to start work, so I'm not doing that again. And I can't shout enough about how important that fake commute is, both at the start of the day, but also at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, it's so important to get some movement even before you start working, before you come to your desk. Because as well, I was that type of person. I would wake up and I would go, well, I have a cup of coffee. I would have a cup of coffee, and then I would come to my desk straight away. And then I'm all day like zombie, And then by the end of the day, I'm so tired cognitively. And I feel
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to go out. I don't want to even have a walk tomorrow. And that tomorrow can happen in 3 days. That
I
was
mean,
me
even if
before.
you can't get out, even if you can't get out and you've got a busy schedule, just have a walk around the garden if you've got one, or when you're brushing your teeth, do some squats, because it takes about 2 minutes to brush your teeth. Um, just yeah, do some lunges or do some squats, or just some side to side movements, some little shuffles. Again, pop some music on if you need to. It's really simple. When you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. When you're washing your hands, you can have a little boogie as well. I've got a video coming out tomorrow, which is another kind of bonkers one, where I'm cooking dinner, and I had no idea you could do these things with a frying pan. But believe me, if anyone watches my post tomorrow, you'll have a giggle. But it's also moving as well, and having a bit of fun with some music on in the background.
Oh, so cool. I'm looking forward to seeing it tomorrow. I'll keep an eye
It is
on that.
funny. The dog might be involved as well.
That's cool. We love dogs. We love pets. So I can see that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. What I can see, Shona, from you is that like for you, it's not just like movement. It's not only like on your to-do list. It's like part of your lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
part of you, who you are, and that's so important because I think, as we previously said, that a lot of people is just for them, it's like to do, oh, I must just, get out of my house and do some movements. But again, thinking longer term, they can prevent so many chronic diseases, because if they don't take action today, now, I actually, before I jumped on the call with you, I was reading, I found some research. I think it was done in the UK, where they talk about people who have been sitting. So that study was done for about 12 years.
Mm.
I'll actually might link under in the description box of this video. And they were talking about people who were sitting, how the rate of mortality have increased, and the rate of cardiovascular diseases
Yeah, yeah,
have increased for them compared to people who did some movement.
yeah.
And it's just mind blowing.
I
When you
mean,
think,
you've only got to look at the stats around things like type 2 diabetes, and I work with a lot of type 2 diabetes patients as well. I'm qualified to do that. And, if we go back 20 years, there were 1.5 million people in the UK diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It's now 3.5 million, and that's only people who've been diagnosed. There are a lot of people who don't go and get tested, and it's a really serious condition. And a lot of that is down to people living a sedentary lifestyle and thinking they don't have time to move. So, it doesn't have to be rocket science, but I can't emphasize enough that the importance of it, and it make it fun as well. If it ends up being like a chore, I mean, I did another video last week which just seemed to make people think was hilarious, where I'm putting the vacuum round, and I've got a bit of Freddie Mercury on in the background as well. You want to break free, and I'm doing my lunges as I'm doing the vacuuming, and it's so simple, but it just makes one doing the housework a bit more fun, but you're also getting a bit more movement in as well. And I'll dance around with the vacuum cleaner, and it's just having a bit more fun. I'll sometimes use my dog and do some squats with her, and she's not being harmed in that. She actually likes it. She wants to come up and do them now.
yeah, you see, you get so creative with all of these exercises, and
I think you have to be though, don't you? Because people think, oh gosh, I don't want to just lift weights, or I don't just want to just get up and do 10 push-ups. Actually, though, you know what? If I think it's just getting started as well. You don't have to be good to get started, but you do have to get started to get good. And you start somewhere, and then just monitor your progress as you keep going, and just start monitoring how you look and how you feel, and start tracking it as well. It will make such a difference. I honestly feel, coming towards 50, that I'm in the best health, the best shape that I've been ever. And I want to carry on with that, because like you said about cardiovascular disease, etc., there's also osteoporosis, and that can set in quite quickly, because after the age of 40, our health can start to deteriorate if we don't look after ourselves. With women, we start losing our estrogen, so it's important to keep our muscles and our bones strong. And with men, they start to lose their testosterone, and it can be a minefield on knowing what to do and how to look for a solution, but it isn't that difficult once you know how.
yes, yeah. You've said it. Yeah, it's so important to actually think ahead and take an action, because when it happens to you, let's say if you diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it's not too late obviously to start, but still you have a chronic metabolic condition,
Yep.
disease, and it's much harder. And then some people, not some people, from everyone who has some chronic disease, they were like, oh, I wish I could turn back time, I wish I had started sooner, like healthier lifestyle, movement, and etc. But
Yep.
time is gone. So,
Well, that's
and it's,
exactly what happened to me. All right, I wasn't diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but when I was pushed into early menopause as a result of my accident, which was all from the burnout, I did end up being diagnosed with uterine cancer. and I mean, I'm fine. I'm one of the lucky ones, and I survived. And you know, this is why I appreciate every day. I appreciate life so much, and it shouldn't be taken for granted. So, you know, my health is absolutely paramount, because if I'm not looking after myself, then I'm no good for anybody else or anything else.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, of course. That's why, yeah, and it's good that you're promoting that as well on social media, because maybe it might make some people think, or you might inspire some people to actually do similar thing. It's so important that you are doing that. And I'm just thinking, Shona, maybe for people who, again, just to recap what you have already said, for busy professionals, let's say if they're starting from zero, what can they do to incorporate movements into their daily life? You already mentioned resistance bands, which is good for, let's say, if you don't have access to weights. What else can we?
So body weight
Yeah.
is absolutely fine, or even just using tin cans from your cupboard. You know, I've put
Hmm.
an exercise program together for people, and you can just use water bottles, tin cans, body weight, using things like your just your the bottom of your stairs to do some tricep dips or some push-ups. You can I show people how to do alternatives. You can do them on your knees to start, or even just up against the wall, like I said. But you know, even if you're just sat on a chair, you could just sit there and you can just sort of, you know, just some knee raises up and down. Even things like that will just help. It's all better than nothing. Have a really big stretch right up to the ceiling, right, tummy in tight, and just lean over. And you will get people who say, oh, I can't do a certain exercise because I've got a bad knee, or I've got a bad back, or I've got a bad shoulder. A lot of the time it is excuses. And I'm not saying, right, if you've got bad knees, you need to do lots of squats. There's always other things you can do. And that's the important thing. There's always something. So just ask. And anyone can come and ask me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions around it. But who doesn't want to boogie to their favourite song when it comes on, you know? And I like to take the philosophy of dance like no one's watching, but dance like you've got the worst playlist on.
Yeah, so true. And yeah, so actually, can you tell us how do you like what type of services do you provide and how our listeners can connect with you?
So I do a lot of training in corporate companies, and I
Hmm.
mainly do my talks now. I get asked a lot to come in and do a talk around the benefit of movement. My talk is called Small Steps, Big Impact. And it just gets people to kind of understand how you can move more. And it might seem obvious, but people are just not doing it. And you know, getting managers to notice it as well, and make sure people are taking those little micro breaks. I do one-to-one coaching, both online and in person, if it's in locally to where I live, which is in Portishead. And if anyone does want to contact me, I've just got my new business cards. Actually, I love them. Look at these; they're
Oh,
absolutely
nice.
brilliant. But on the back there, I have got a little QR code, and I've got a new website coming soon as well. But if you scan that QR code, you can book a free 20-minute chat with me, and we can talk about any of your needs and anything that you want, with no obligation to work with me at all. And obviously, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram and stuff as well. Just type my name in, I'll come up.
Wonderful. I also will leave all the links, the one you've just mentioned, in the show notes of this episode, and in the description box of if you're watching us on YouTube, so you can either contact or connect with Shona, or just scan the code, the barcode, right? The one you just showed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I love the branding. I love the O with star.
It's
Yeah, is
great,
that?
isn't it? Yeah, a friend of mine helped me do it, and I love it because it's simple. Um, and yeah, I'm going to be the next gym shark.
I'm sure you will. And before we wrap up, Shona, do you have maybe anything to say to people who want to start their fitness journey? They want to incorporate movement into their life, but they're just a little bit, you know, not intimidated, but they hesitant to do that.
Just start small. It doesn't have to be for an hour at a time, just those couple of minutes here and there. Just get up and just move. And if you're, you can't actually get up because you're physically unable to, again, just using one of those resistance bands are brilliant, or a couple of tin cans. You can pick these resistance bands up literally for a couple of pounds. And I'm just about to have all my own branded ones done as well. So within the next few weeks, they'll be available. So if anyone wants one from me, then anyone who listens to this podcast can come and get one. And I'm happy to give a discount as well of 10%.
Perfect. And also, I saw you use a kettlebell as well.
Yes.
That's also great to have, and they don't cost a lot as well. They're
They
quite,
don't. It's worth shopping around. Even some
yeah.
of the supermarkets these days sell them, and mine. I paid just literally a few pounds for mine, and they're great. So it's worth looking for them on offer. You can pay a lot of money for them. I think the only thing I would say with using a kettlebell is make sure you know how to use one. I mean, lifting it above your head, that's fine, that's easy. But when you're swinging it, just make sure you've got your technique right. But again, if anyone did want to book in and have a 20-minute call with me and ask me how to do that, I'll show them how to do it.
Yeah, no, I actually agree. I did mention the kettlebell, but it's you really need to know. You need to have a good form technique, otherwise, because I think you're right. You
Doesn't
need
take long
to
to learn. It's not,
yeah.
we're talking again a minute or two to learn properly how to do it. But I would just want to make sure people, it's things like, don't bend over too much, because if you're bending over, then you're going to put too much pressure on your back. So it's just things like, make sure you're looking forward and your chest is up and your shoulders are back and things like that. But I can give those people those simple techniques, and that doesn't cost them anything to do that.
Yeah, sure. And before, one more question, I actually forgot to ask you, Shona. That's my mistake. About nutrition. So obviously,
Yeah.
movement goes, hand in hand with nutrition. What would you say about nutrition? If again, to a busy professional, do you have any? I don't like the word hacks, but maybe tips. Yeah.
Yeah. Ditch the diets, ditch the scales, and eat more protein. People are not eating enough protein. So very, very quick demo. Look at your hand, and this is a good guide of how much of each portion of things we should be eating a day. So use the palm of your hand for each meal. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you want to be having a palm-sized amount of protein. And protein is more than just meat. There are like 100 different things. If anyone wants my protein source cheat sheet, they're more than welcome to have it. I can send it over. When you're thinking about your carbohydrates, and people, when you think of carbs, you think of things like pasta and potatoes. You get carbs in your vegetables as well. So again, I have a big list on all the different carbs if anyone wants it. Look at the fist of your hand. That's how much carbs you want with each plate. And then when it comes to your fruit and veg, think about the color of the rainbow. You want to be thinking about having, multiple colors in there, and cup your hands together like that. That's how much for each meal you want to be having for that. And then when it comes to fat, look at your thumb, because we do need some fat in our diet as well. So fat, you want to be looking at the thumb-sized portion for each meal. And if you're doing things like strength training as well, then you can actually add an extra piece of protein to your daily nutrition as well, maybe as a snack. And hopefully that will give people that visualization of how to portion it out during the day. And I follow very much an 80-20 rule. So try and eat as much minimally processed foods as you can. And if you do decide that you want a pizza or a glass of wine, don't beat yourself up about it, but just think about that being 20% of the time instead.
Yeah, so it's all about balance, right?
Mm.
Have that balanced diet. Yeah, it's so important. And it's good that you mentioned you emphasize protein. That's sometimes what's lacking in our diet.
Yeah,
So important. Yeah, thank you so much, Shona, for this insightful conversation. I really appreciate
you're
you being on
welcome.
my show. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. You're really welcome.